Good day and welcome to Estate Planning, the Basics. This is really the introductory video to a series on estate planning, and I think it's important to say if you feel a little bit lost at the end of this video, don't worry. You'll be able to, for example, delve into more detail on wills, or how to structure a little black box or trusts in some of the subsequent videos. Okay, so obviously the question is, what is estate planning? And we take a slightly different view to the way a lot of people approach it. We think that too many people overplay the importance of a will. While it is a critical element, it is not the only element. So from a KP fiduciary perspective, we see your entire financial world. That's everything: your structures, your tax position, your investments, your retirement position, where your family are domiciled and their financial position. All of these elements combine into a much bigger estate plan. So we believe that because of the complexity and the time and effort involved in drafting an effective estate plan, one really has to follow a fairly systematic approach. We think the initial steps at least should be, firstly, to gather the facts. So that would be to take your trust deeds, take your will out of the box, dust them off and have a look at them and see how they fit into your world now. The second thing is obviously then to list all your assets and liabilities. The third thing, we believe this is critical before even drafting plans or thinking how you want to change your estate plan. We would strongly advocate that you sit down with your partner or your spouse and discuss with them your vision and your plan and how you would like to see this estate plan evolve, and very importantly get their input, because the two of you may have quite differing views, and it's important to thrash those out. Then obviously once you've got the asset and liability picture, you will have a pretty good idea of what your capital gains and your estate liability is. We'll have one entire video dedicated to establishing your CGT and your estate liability, so don't stress too much about that at this stage. Obviously then you need to provide for the liquidity, so in other words, for those first 6 months, for example, after you've passed away, the 6 months worth of living expenses for your loved ones, as well as providing for capital gains tax and estate duty or death duty. And that's particularly relevant where you've got a significant portion of your assets in illiquid investments. And then lastly, it sounds pretty simple, but it is a complicated and a time-consuming process. You're going to draft your ideal estate plan. And I think importantly, you're probably going to need some professional advice on this. Okay, so just one of the critical elements, as we said, of an estate plan is a will. Everybody should have one, and not only should they have one, they should make sure that it's properly crafted, that it is relevant to their circumstances, and then thirdly, that all importantly, it's reviewed on a fairly regular basis. We often meet people who drafted wills 20, 30 years ago, and frankly they are quite meaningless as living documents. In terms of wills, we feel very, very strongly that one should try and avoid ruling from the grave. These ironclad, very rigid wills, while tempting, are sometimes very debilitating for beneficiaries and can be very value destructive from an investment or a financial point of view. And then, lastly, as we've said throughout, a will is a well-crafted will is a crucial element of an intelligent and an effective estate plan, but it is not the only part. And we strongly believe that at KP Fiduciary, we work very hard on building the other elements of the estate plan, such that the will actually plays a relatively minor part in particularly wealthy families' estate planning later on. All right, very quick word on trusts. There's obviously a lot of debate over the tax treatments inside of trusts, and in South Africa we recognize that the income tax benefits are going to diminish, with the conduit principle likely to be abolished soon. But having said that, we still think that trusts have considerable merit. We're not going to dwell on it too much here, but just to say that as the central point or the pivotal point for the financial planning of an enlarged family, it still makes a lot of sense. Trusts make incredible sense as the vehicle through which you, or by which you provide for minor children and for those who are unable to take care of their own financial affairs. Yeah, and then also it can help with liberating the investment portfolio, because one can then fairly intelligently manage the assets for the true beneficiaries, and not for what one may frankly describe as a sort of a temporary custodian. Okay, so how do you tackle estate planning? I think we need to acknowledge it is it's a time-consuming, and it's, to be honest, a very emotionally draining experience. And the only way to do this, we believe, is with patience and discipline. We think that the first thing, as we've said before, is you have to engage your family, particularly your spouse, and get their thoughts on the matter. The second thing is, because it is a highly technical, sometimes very legal, and has elements of investment and tax in it, chances are pretty high, or chances are very real, that you're going to need professional advice somewhere along the line. So don't be put off by the complexity of the task before you. You've got years to get it right. Be patient and tackle every project as its own project. We also think that creating a checklist, we will have it available on the KP Fiduciary website or in the subsequent videos, will give you a lot of structure in actually tackling your estate planning in a very systematic way. Lastly, we've got to say that even with the greatest will in the world, you can draft your ideal estate plan today, but it'll probably take you a significant amount of time to actually create those structures, to morph the assets, and to transfer wealth. So be patient and understand that you are on a path, but most importantly, put interim measures in place while you're getting to your paradise estate planning solution. All right, we believe it's important to bring everything together in your estate planning, as we were just saying, in a checklist, and we think that a little black box plays a vital part in this. And this is really just a central place where you will keep copies of all your important documents, so copies of your identity documents, bank statements, summary of assets and liabilities, your will, etc. This just makes life a lot simpler for your beneficiaries when you do pass away, and it'll also not only simplify the life of your executor or your administrator, but will probably help in speeding up the estate administration process. So if you haven't made work of your estate plan for some time, we would urge you to start today. If you haven't got a will, the absolute first thing you have to do, and do it as a matter of urgency, is to draft a will. If you have a will but you haven't looked at it in 15 or 20 years, review it. If it's not relevant anymore, throw it away after you've drafted a new will. And then I think you need to resolve to tackle your estate planning as a program. I think some of the things you can do, some of those proactive steps you can take in the coming weeks, would then to draft an optimal estate plan. Again, probably getting some professional advice. Create that little black box to give you structure, and then a very important, particularly for those who are still breadwinners and are still paying for young children or children at school, for example, it's critical to assess your level of life cover, and also obviously to assess whether you have sufficient liquidity. We cannot stress enough how important it is in estate planning to seek professional advice. We believe that specialist estate practitioners are probably a better option, but there are many other options available. Lawyers, accountants, and even some private banks offer these services. It's important for us to say that this video is really just intended to be of educational or instructional value, and really shouldn't be seen as comprehensive financial advice. We hope you'll enjoy the subsequent videos on estate planning, and that you got something out of this.